I want to talk in this video about a couple of the cultural phenomenons that are going to change the shape of the United States following World War II. Some of which will have a direct effect on us, as you're going to see going forward. In the first one of these is what's called the GI Bill of Rights. Now I know what you're thinking. No, GI Bill is not GI Joe's brother. Uh, okay, that's funny. But the GI Bill was signed into law by Franklin Roosevelt as a thank you for troops who had served in uh, World War II. This wasn't uncommon, if you remember, from World War One, and then kind of the debacle of Herbert Hoover sending Douglas MacArthur out to get the bonus army. Those veterans had been promised a certain bonus in 1945, and so it was just kind of a thank you. Today, there are usually sign-on bonuses in the military. When you serve in the military, you get free health care. And we just built a new veterans facility behind the Scottsburg Hospital here in town. So that's one that you get. A lot of times you'll get college paid for, low interest home loans, things like that. Really, you start to see those programs show up after World War II. As we're looking for a way to thank the millions of guys that went over and served both in Europe and the Pacific. There are going to have a couple of consequences. One is it is going to completely transform college campuses. Because one of the things that they are going to be allowed to do is to attend college basically for free. I remember reading an article in IU's Alumni Magazine where so many people take advantage of this in Bloomington that they temporarily move kind of trailers in on campus because they didn't have enough dorm facility for everybody that was showing up. Now, this is going to, like I said, have repercussions on the way we live our lives today because for a lot of these guys, college had never been a consideration. It wasn't something that they would have ever thought about doing. This is the 1940s. You could get well, you didn't even really have to graduate from high school, but if you graduated from high school, you could get a really good job, and that was going to be all that you needed. To make it. But there are a lot of these guys that look and say, well, hey, for free, why don't I go and take advantage of this? So you're going to have higher education open up to a group of people who never would have had it before. That's going to allow people to get careers they never dreamed of. And then here's the big one. They're going to then expect the same for their children. If you are the first person in your family to go to college, or if you know somebody that was, you know how difficult that can be because people just aren't used to it. Nobody has ever done that in the family before. But my parents had gone to college, and so the expectation for my little sister and I was that we were going to do that. Mine and my wife's expectation for Noah is that he will do that because it's something we both took advantage of. And so it makes it easier for those kids to be able to go to college. Now think about it this way too. If you are well, let's say you're a young man, you come back from the war, 1946-47. You go to college, you come back, you get married, you have a kid. Say the baby's born 1950-51. By 1968, your kids are going to be going to college campuses. One of the things we'll look at when we talk about the Vietnam War era is the number of kids who were there, obviously with the immediate threat of having to go to Vietnam once they graduated. And we see colleges as some of the hotbeds of anti-Vietnam War protest. Well, those kids may have not been there if their parents hadn't taken advantage of the opportunity to go to school. These folks also get low interest home loans. The low interest home loans are interesting because there weren't a lot of houses in the United States. Uh, Keep in mind, we go into the war right after the Great Depression. There wasn't a lot of call for that, and so we had a housing shortage that's going to be met by another fellow, a veteran named Bill Levitt, that we're going to take a look at in a moment. And for a lot of these folks, the big thing that they wanted was to come back and have a quote unquote normal life. They wanted to come back, marry the girl who'd been writing letters to them, and settle down and have a family. And that was a lot of what this post-war period was about. So 1946 to 1964, we have a baby boom in this country. Really, during the Great Depression, it didn't make a lot of sense to have children. There was more mouths that you had to feed. But now that prosperity was back, that the war was over with, people wanted to have children. And so during the baby boom period, 76 million children were born in the United States. And you may have heard of that particular group called the baby boom generation. It was the greatest birth rate in our nation's history. It created this massive generation of people. And what it's going to do is it's going to set up a generational conflict that we're going to see again pay off in the 1960s because you've got a group of World War II generation parents. Some people call them the greatest generation, who have these very staunch ideas about national identity, devotion to country, the way you should live your lives. And then you're going to have their children who are going to have very different experiences and a very different war that they're going to be asked to fight. And the generational conflict we're going to see is one that helps fuel what's going on in the 1960s. The like I said, the big deal with a lot of this housing is going to be the suburbs. There's a man named Bill Levitt. I'll put a video up for you on the playlist that does a nice job of kind of showing how this worked. But Bill Levitt had been an engineer in the Pacific. And as they were island hopping, what he'd seen was the process of building these bases was very quick because it was very orderly. Everybody knew what they were doing, and so it went very quickly. So he's looking around saying, all these people need houses. Why don't we bring the same techniques to house building? And so that's what he's going to do. He's going to set up a style of house where you could buy a home in these Bill Levitt suburbs, but you didn't really get to pick a whole lot of different things, right? All the houses were pretty much the same, and so the crews could get very good at building them. And he would have the crews kind of like an assembly line. There'd be guys that were pouring the foundation. And that's what they did all day, was pour the foundation of houses, so they get really good at it. Then you get your framing crews that come behind and frame those houses. Builders in the 1950s could make 4 or 5 houses a year on their own. And Levittowns, they were making 4 or 5 houses a day that they were getting finished. And so there's all these people that want to come in and to live in these places. And it's really kind of amazing to see the process that folks went to. So what forms this baby boom generation, right? These are going to be the folks that grow up on music like the Beatles. Usually to be a baby boomer, and I know it said till 1964, and that's the technical definition, but usually you have to be old enough to remember the Kennedy assassination to be considered an actual baby boomer. And like I said, these folks are going to be on college campuses protesting the Vietnam War. You see a young man here burning a draft card. Some famous baby boomers for you, some folks that you might know. Bill Clinton was our first baby boomer president. Oprah Winfrey is a baby boomer. You see President George W. Bush there. Sylvester Stallone, I mean, the dude was Rocky, that's a big deal. And then Nicolas Cage. So a lot of people that you know are baby boomers, and one of the things those people have in common now is they're getting to be retirement age, and this is where baby boomers are kind of affecting us in what we're seeing right now. Baby boomers today make up 28% of the American population, but they control 70% of the wealth in the country. And I've got this lady here for you, Kathleen Casey Kirschling, and she is the first baby boomer to sign up for Social Security. Now, Social Security, right, they take out of our checks every time you get paid, and it's, we talked about it in the 1930s, it's old age insurance, right? When you get to be old enough, you retire, and then the government sends you a little bit of money every month, and you've paid into this the whole time you've been working. Well, what we're seeing is if we have all of these baby boomers come and retire, they didn't have as many children as their parents did. And so there are less of them, or less of us than there are of them. And so one of the big worries is that this may bankrupt the Social Security system if steps aren't taken. But this is a huge group of people, like I said, that are entering the world of retirement now, but they're going to live longer than any generation before. And so it'll be interesting in a lot of different ways to see what effect these baby boomers and their aging has on our culture. So that's a little bit about the GI Bill, the baby boom, Levitt Towns, and baby boomers.